How interesting. I went to record and the setting sun is creating a shadow right on my face. And it's giving me an opportunity to be creative and to illustrate a teaching. So sometimes we can feel like this, like even though we're there, we can't see ourselves and we can't be seen. So if I stay in this perspective, under the shadow, where there's an absence of light, I can feel invisible, I can feel unseen, unheard. I can feel shadowed in, cloaked away. But if I move into the light, and even though it's blinding bright light, and I change my perspective, ooh, that's bright. It's hard, I can't actually see anything. Oh, now I can see a reflection. So I can actually see myself. It's just amazing how it's all about perspective. And it's all about how we feel with the filter. So under the filter of a shadow, I feel strange, right? Because I can't see what I'm doing. I can't. It's like there's a disconnect when we're in the shadow of something. And the shadow could be the shadow of your past. It could be the shadow of addiction or some mental health challenge. It could be an illness. It could be a grief. It could be a loss. It could be a breakup. But when we actually remember that we can be creative, like that shadow is still there. It could still be a block, but if I play around with it and if I explore, I can find a better, more comfortable place to be. I can find a new way to look at life. And if I remember that the block was created subconsciously by myself, by other people's beliefs that I decided unconsciously to pick up, or maybe in childhood I was indoctrinated into that program. But as an adult and as a conscious being, I can choose a new perspective. And I can choose to step into the light. And you know, as I'm choosing and being in this really, really intense natural light of the sun, the solar light right now, I'm also reminded of how when you have a deep awakening or you are upgraded in your consciousness, and your awakening is not a one-time thing, it's something that is continuous. You are always evolving. You are an evolving creative being. How could you stop and cease to move forward? But I'm reminded that when we step from the dark into the light, it can be quite dramatic, quite blinding, quite uncomfortable. That bright light of consciousness shining upon us and shining upon all that we are unflinchingly can be daunting. It can be very new, and our eyes have to adjust. We have to adjust to the new frequency of living and being in the light and having our relationships in the light. So if there's some way I can, I say, this is just an experiment. I really should prepare, or should not, I don't know. I'm not one for preparing. I just kind of like the rawness and authenticity of just that inspired moment to be creative and to record something and channel something. Let me see. Everywhere I move it, it's there. And again, it's another opportunity to teach a lesson. Everywhere you go, you take yourself with you, right? So your shadows, they can follow you because they're stemming from your unconsciousness. So everywhere I go, I'm bringing all of myself with me, the light and the dark. So that's where we get to heal and integrate. We get to do wonderful things by becoming alchemists and turning our shadows into the light. I can't see. I'm even on the camera. Okay. So when I did my energy forecast for this year of 2023, I called it the year of the wild. And that has many meanings and many layers to it, because that word can mean so many different things to people. For me, it means lots of different things as well, but mainly it's like the wildness, liberation, freedom, authentic, original, returning to our roots, to our wild spiritual nature, getting back to being the spiritual, physical, bare feet on the ground, co-creators that we are. But it also it has a connotation of, wow, that's wild. You know, like this, we're going to look back at this year and say, this year was wild. And I love that that means, it doesn't necessarily, when you hear someone say, how was your holiday? How was your trip to Africa? You know, how was your birth experience? People say, oh, it was wild. And they say it with this, like, it doesn't mean it was good. It doesn't mean it was bad. You can feel in that it's all those things. It's an amalgamation, a conglomeration of all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And that's what I feel we're learning to appreciate, all the challenges, the prickliness, as well as all the smooth roads and smooth paths. And getting to appreciate that a very flat path that doesn't challenge us will very quickly become boring. And the valleys, the troughs, the gradients is part of the beauty of our journey here. So I did not know why the angels wanted me to sit down in this intense bright sunshine, but that's the message. That's what came through as I worked with what showed up here. And that's a lesson in itself, in that showing up is enough, and you can be creative and you can explore and you can work around that, and you can always find a way. There's always a way. I got to express these truths, even though this is an unusual video, right? You don't see many YouTubers putting up videos. They say, oh, that's not visually pleasing or pretty or whatever, but I think the message is deserving of being heard. And I think this little example of the shadow and being in the light, and also seeing that even though the shadow is on you, you're still there, you're still present, right? You can be present in the shadow, in the pain, in the grief, in the loss, in the divorce, whatever it is, and that shadow is not permanent. When the light shifts, that shadow will go away. When you step into the light, the shadow goes away. Remember, your shadow is the darkness. It's simply the absence of the light. For some reason, you're meant to hear that right now. If you enjoy this, you can like and subscribe. This is Aveen and the Angels, over and out. Namaste.